So hello YouTubers, welcome to another episode of Frugal Finance. So today I wanted to touch on a project of mine. So basically, as you've probably seen from the uploads, I haven't really been posting too many regular updates, to be honest. I've still been putting a bit of money into the stock market and so on, and keeping you up to date with that. But I've actually been really busy and you're with property deals and things like that. And you will see in my previous videos I have reference to this because it's going to be a bit of a kind of busy period, if you like. And you have to remember I do this for fun and it's not money orientated, so I have to get my priorities right. Anyway, so grab yourself a cup of coffee and have a sip of that and sit back and let's get into the video. So what are we going to look at today? So what we're going to look at is actually a particular flat that I purchased about 4 years ago. And I got tenants in it straight away because they were desperate at the time to get in. I do a lot of work with the local council, helping people who have otherwise got themselves into a sort of situation where they're in need of housing. And these people moved in, they moved into the flat. I allowed them to decorate and make it their own, really. It needed some work doing to it. It was in a pleasant state, but really to probably decorative wise the state of the previous owner. One of the reasons why I bought this particular flat was because it's actually in a building that we already own some property in. It probably wasn't the best deal on the planet, but actually it's a bigger picture because obviously it's in a building that we're familiar with, and it's a leasehold property, so there is a service charge here, and it's nice to have that feeling of kind of understanding what's going to go on, especially when you buy a leasehold property. We even manage the building, so there's many reasons as to why perhaps hunting for a really rock bottom deal probably wasn't the best thing. And as it showed, it kind of suited the situation really, because if it was a dilapidated property or one in need of TLC, the tenant wouldn't have been able to move in straight away. So what I really want to touch on today is kind of a journey of what we're doing in the flat, and kind of see and show you around it, and the sort of things that we're doing in there. But then really at the end of this, I'm going to touch on how one might go about sort of financing that. So let's get over to the video that we did in the flat, and a special thanks to my son who did the camera work. So hopefully not too bad for you guys, but give him some thumbs up, liking if you do like the camera work, and don't forget to subscribe as well whilst you're down there. That allows you to follow the journey as and when I do post. I'm not posting loads, so you won't get bombarded with things, but it is nice that people do watch these videos and watch them through to the end as well. They're really hopefully quite useful to anybody either starting out their journey or maybe midway through. So let's get on over to the video. Okay, so this is flat 21 in Peacehaven. So this is one that we bought probably about 4 years ago, and it's had a tenant in it. I was quite lucky. So when I first purchased the property, the tenant moved in almost immediately, and we didn't really get a chance to do an awful lot of work. So this is one here that basically now they've moved out, we're choosing to do a lot of work on it. So as you can see, if you want to follow me, we're putting in a new kitchen in here, which I'll show you some photos of the old one. It's basically all new units, worktop and the rest of it, and kind of investing a bit of money back into the property because it was a little bit tired. And as I said before, the people just literally I picked up the keys I think on the Friday. Following Friday they moved in, so there's really only enough time to get kind of the electrical certificates, gas safety and that in place. Not really a lot of time to decorate and make good. But the kitchen itself had kind of come to the end of its useful life. And the important thing with this particular property is that I think this is what I would call as a kind of low growth or an easy buy. It's in a particular building where we've already got some other ones and we're involved with the freehold company and so on, but in terms of being a really rock bottom below market value property, it wasn't that at all. It was more a case of buying it because actually it's part of a bigger picture. Obviously we own other ones in the building. I think the importance to learn is that you don't always have to go for like mega cheap, refurbishment properties, sometimes you can't always recycle your money out. So we'll give you a quick little tour around here. So this is just a pretty simple 2-bed flat in a little town just outside of Brighton in East Sussex. And it's pretty standard. One of the things I really like about these flats is that they have these massive storage cupboards. We've got one here, one round the corner there. And then in each of the bedrooms here, they also have storage unit cupboards. This is the smaller of the bedrooms. As you can see, there's still a bit of work going on here. And, you know, generally speaking, that makes for a really good rental property. So actually, for us, it wasn't about particularly going for the best deal out there, you know, the most below market. This is a building where we already own property in it. It's part of a bigger picture for that reason. And actually, these flats rent out really, really well. They have an underground car parking garage thing that's got a space in it, and each of the rooms has got lots of storage in it. So when people come round, they don't kind of start thinking, well, I'll put a bed here, and then by the time I've got a wardrobe in here, there's not a lot of room. So again, in this room, as you can see, lots and lots of storage, funky mirror there. So one of the bonus things with this particular property was when we first purchased it, it actually had pretty much a brand new bathroom in it, but the previous owner had only put a shower in here. So one of the things we did whilst the tenant was living here over the last 4 years was actually to put in a bath and a shower unit for them, because obviously it's a bit awkward if you've got young ones or whatever. See, showering them is less than ideal. They like to have a splash about in the bath and so on. So again, P-shaped bath, so you've got a nice area here to have standing and the rest of it, and you know, obviously you can enjoy bath time. So I think the key thing with this particular property is that we're going to go for a super quick turnaround. So the tenant moved out, literally 4 weeks to build the kitchen, refurbish the place, and I've got the new tenant moving in very shortly. We're a little bit behind with things, I think, at the moment, but I think that's kind of as the market's going with builders and various materials and things. But hopefully, very shortly, this will kind of re-transformed into, you know, a really nice flat. So I'll come back to the studio, and at a later date we'll have a recap of this particular property once it's all done up, and I'll show you some nice photos. So as you can see there's quite a lot of work going on in the flat at the moment. It's progressed a little bit since that video. We've got a tenant lined up now. We found one pretty much straight away, so the property's going to be empty for about a month. So it's a bit of a turnaround for the builder, and obviously I've kind of kept on top of them, and I've gone up and done things myself to keep the cost down primarily, and also things like you know, providing the materials and things, because that obviously assists with contractors' markup. You know, if they go and provide the materials for you and the rest of it, they're likely to put 10, 20, maybe 30% on the top of the prices. By providing that for them, I've saved that money. So I hope that gives you a kind of good overview as to why I might have bought this particular property and what we're doing with it, and some insight into where we're at. But I just wanted to touch briefly on sort of funding it, really, because obviously a lot of people will say, well, you know, you obviously have to save up all this money, and then you get this big deposit, you put it down, and then you're not refinancing it, so your money's locked in. And I'm okay with that. It has gone up in value, probably by about £20,000. So obviously there's £20,000 worth of equity in there, not as much as perhaps we would traditionally look for. And I've left that equity in there, even when we've remortgaged it. Left that in there, you know, as a kind of hedge against perhaps property prices going down or whatever, and to get the loan to value down a little bit. So we're probably at about, give or take, 35% loan to value at the moment. But in terms of financing these particular things, there are so many deals out there with credit cards, and I know a lot of people will go, credit cards, stick my fingers in the air, don't want to know about them. But they do an awful lot of things like balance transfers for 0%. So you can go in, like I have, into B&Q or your local hardware centre. I don't know, like there's Hardware Depot in America and all that kind of stuff, and basically buy the kitchens at the discounted rate, which is obviously not what the builder's going to charge you. And then you can sit down and go, okay, right, so I've got this bill for £2,000 for kitchens, bathrooms, whatever it might be, paint, something like that. And you can do a balance transfer on those credit cards. So you can transfer the balance of one credit card, so perhaps it's just a standard credit card you have to pay off in 30 days, over to somebody like, in the UK, we have MBNA, who are continuously doing offers, and you can transfer that £2,000 balance for a fixed fee of about 2 to 4%. So you have to pay 2 or 4%, but that is the only interest you pay, or only administration charge essentially, for transferring that balance. And then you get 12 to 18 months, 2 years sometimes, to pay the balance off. Now, there are loads of deals, and you need to obviously do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor, and you need to look into it before you just kind of get credit cards out and transfer balances left, right and centre. But now I can then use the profit from the build to pay down that particular credit card. So obviously the tenant will move in, lovely nice new refurbished flat, they'll pay a rent, there'll be a profit. I use that profit to pay down the the balance transfer from the credit card, and at the end of the 18 months hopefully that credit card is all zeroed out. If not, I may have to look for another credit card to surf that balance over to. So yeah, I think they're a really beautiful way of actually funding these things for very low cost, and obviously you do have to put a bit of effort in yourself. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some kind of ideas as to how you can kind of start to go about your journey of doing these things. And if you end up with a property that perhaps is very tired after a tenant moves out, you haven't got the money because you haven't been particularly frugal with it, and you've kind of spent it on lifestyle inflation things, look at this avenue of the credit cards and the balance transfers and the rest of it, and get the place refurbished. It's an investment in your asset, and it will make it worth more money in the long term. And essentially you're using your profit from the particular thing to reinvest the money in, which is obviously a nice feeling for the tenant and all involved anyway, because they're having a nicer standard of living. They're not living in a rundown or kind of tin pot kitchen where the drawer handles keep falling off and the loo doesn't flush properly and the rest of it. They're living in a nice standard of living, regardless of whether you're working with the council or doing private sector renting or whatever. They have a nice standard of living. As I've always said, my rule of thumb is if I wouldn't live in it, I wouldn't expect somebody else to. So hopefully that gives you some really good ideas as to how you can sort of manage these projects and finance them essentially mid-term, really. So we're not talking really about the early stages of getting in. This is kind of the life cycle of the property. Anyway, if you like the video, please do smash the like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.